What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're doing something a little bit different, something that we haven't done in a very, very long time. Actually, we did do one of these videos this offseason, so I can't say we didn't do it this year. We did it one time, and that was when we did Gregory Rousseau against Kwity Paye. But today, we're back for another prospect battle. I said battle again. Prospect battle video. This time, it's between linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and also linebacker Zaven Collins. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome everybody to the video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, I'm excited to be back with one of these videos, man. I kind of had the idea of doing it. I was watching film on one, and I was like, I kind of want to watch the other one. So I'm taking notes on both. I'm like, let's just do like a battle video. Now, okay, now these videos are difficult because, you know, these players aren't exactly the same. But basically, you get a little bit of a 2-for-1 action. You get to hear about both players, so that's pretty darn cool. And also, I do have a video planned to do with Micah Parsons next. But if there's anyone you want to see me do a video on, literally any prospect, put in the comment section below. The one with the most likes will do it next. It's about Jeremiah and Zaven. So we're just going to dive right into this thing. So we basically are going to break it down to a few categories: run defense, pass rush, coverage, really the athletic size, and then I'll kind of give like my thoughts on what scheme they would fit in, what they do well, what they don't well in all those categories, and we'll show some clips on top of that. All right, so it should be a good time. So let's just get right into it. Let's take a look at Jeremiah and Zaven here. So starting off with Zaven Collins first, he checks in at 6'5", 259 pounds. Oh my goodness, 6'5", 259. That is huge for a linebacker. One of the biggest linebackers. Is that the biggest linebacker in this class? I don't think so, because there is that one linebacker is like 6'7", 6'8", but still, I mean, in terms of weight to height, that's one of the biggest linebackers, no question, in this class. That is huge for Zaven Collins. And then Jeremiah is like the complete opposite. Jeremiah checks in at 6'1", 221. But it's a lot of linebackers in this class that are around that size. So it's not like he's the only one that's small. However, if he does start at linebacker next season, he would be like the smallest linebacker in the league. But like I said, there's a lot of linebackers coming out of the draft similar to that size. So it's not that crazy, I guess, at this point. There's just a lot of guys that are built like that, and they're playing linebacker position now because that's how the NFL has gone. That's what football has gone to, especially at the college level. They try to spread you out. It's all about speed. So you got to have some speed to be able to play now at the next level as well. So it makes sense. Let's start with that first, okay? Size and speed. Starting off with size, clearly Zaven Collins is a bigger linebacker here, but you have to understand what you're getting, okay? What am I getting with this linebacker? What am I trying to get? Because they're not the same type of player. That's why these battle videos are difficult, because they're not the same. You know, if you're drafting Zaven Collins, you're drafting him for a totally different purpose than you are drafting Jeremiah for, okay? They do two different things. They're used in two different ways, and they will be used in two different ways at the next level. Zaven Collins, to me, is going to be, and I know this sounds crazy, slightly more versatile as a linebacker, and I'll explain why, you know, as we go through this video. But in terms of where I can line him at, technically, in terms of like linebacker positions, I think they played him the most backside linebacker position. That's where it seemed that he played the most with Tulsa. However, he can definitely play on that strong side as well. I saw him line there a few times, and even every once in a while he'll mix in at the Mike linebacker position. But outside linebacker seems to be where he's most comfortable, even though college offenses, you know, and we see so much nickel and stuff. It's really hard to decide really what's going on here. But he plays, you know, he can play a lot of different linebacker positions, and he can also line up on the edge, so you could bring him as a pass rusher. Now, that's not the only place you want to line. If you're just lining him as an edge, that's probably not the best spot for him, but he can do that in certain situations. Then you look at Jeremiah. Now, Jeremiah's a little bit different here. He doesn't really line up between the tackles. So clearly two different types of linebackers. You got a guy that lines up between the tackles for the most part, and you got Jeremiah who doesn't line up between the tackles. He rarely does that, actually. He can do it a few times depending on situation, but for the most part, he's the type of guy that's lining up outside the tackles like a slot cornerback. He's basically a slot cornerback and linebacker just mixed into one. I mean, that's kind of what he is. He plays both of those spots. Now, when he does line between the tackles, a lot of times on passing downs, he'll go inside like a pass rusher, kind of basically like a safety in the box. If you had to give him a linebacker position, you'd probably call him like a will linebacker, you know, a weak side linebacker. I don't know if you could, you know, say he definitely isn't going to play the Mike role at the next level, that's for sure. And you're not putting him on the strong side. So I would say a will linebacker that basically on passing downs, you know, can play a lot of different positions. You can line up like a slot cornerback. You can line him up basically like a safety in a box where he's in the box, and then with the slot receivers there, he can take that responsibility. So two different types of players. One, way more between the tackles. One, not necessarily between the tackles. So you have to understand the difference. These aren't the same players, all right? So there are differences in their game. But it's still fun to talk about both of them because they're both looking like first-round picks, and they're both looking like they're probably going to go somewhere in the mid-rounds of the first round. Now, as a Lions fan, what does that mean for us? Well, this would probably be more of a trade-back scenario. I mean, you could take one at 7 if you wanted to, if you wanted to be bold, but it's probably unlikely. So this is more likely a 7 scenario. That's why I'm going to do the video on Micah Parsons. That way we can talk about him because he could be a 7 pick. But anyways, let's get back to this. We're getting off topic. Then you touch on the speed category next, okay? Who's faster here? Well, I think this one's pretty easy to understand. Now, Jeremiah did not run his 40 time. However, he did do some of the other drills, like the shuttles, the 3-cone, and he, graded out extremely well there. Very fast in those drills, as expected. He's only 220 pounds. He's 40 pounds less, 4 inches shorter. He should be much faster, and he is much faster. He runs to his size and beyond. He's extremely fast on the field. He looks like he's like juiced up with energy all the time because he can just fly around. So you have tons more speed there. For his size, you expect that, but it probably still exceeds expectations. Zaven Collins, nearly 260 pounds. He moves well for his size. Now, he's about average in terms of the linebacker position. He's like right in the middle by percentile of 40-yard time. He ran a 4.67, which honestly is a pretty solid size. But for his size, when you're talking about a linebacker class that has a lot of smaller linebackers, he can definitely move. I've seen linebackers that are much smaller that look like they're stuck in mud. This dude can move from his size. He can go, side to side, work his way around and make tackles. He can fly out on screens. He definitely can move for his size. So while he's not as fast as Koramoah, he's a much bigger linebacker, so it makes sense. So both of them, I would say both check the box in speed based on their size. Let's get into the play, okay? Let's get on to on the field. Now, I don't really want to go into the stats too much here. I kind of want to just focus on the film because, you can look up the stats and I can throw those on the screen. But I want to talk about the film, all right, what I see. So let's start off with the first thing. This is run stopping, okay? How good do they stop the run, all right? What is their impact on the run game? Let's start off with Zaven Collins first. We'll just keep that going. So with Zaven Collins as a run stopper, a lot more between the tackles. And because of his size, he can take on offensive linemen, and he can really fill gaps at a high level. And he can fill gaps and kind of hold his own ground while still being able to make a tackle. This is the type of linebacker that if you're like Belichick, kind of tree, and you're like the guy that gets like those big linebackers that are like 250, 260 pounds like we did with Tavai, this is the type of linebacker that like, oh my goodness, this guy is amazing because he can move and he's big. He reminds me, honestly, a little bit of Jamie Collins. Yes, so as a run stopper, he's a good run stopper in that way because he can hold his own ground. I also like just how he fills lanes. You'll watch him. He fills lanes like he's the running back. Okay, he really slides. He slides with the offensive line movement, and then as soon as he sees a hole open up, he attacks through there. There's no hesitation when he does that, and he meets the running back in the backfield a lot of times. And that's why there's big plays that he'll cause in the backfield because, yes, that can get you out of position when there is no hesitation there, but as soon as that hole opens up, he goes right through it. I mean, he goes right through it, attacks like he's the running back, and he meets the running back there. And, yeah, that's why he's scary as a run stopper. Where does he lack? Well, to me, he lacks in a couple places. First off, he's not as dominant as you would think he would be for his size. I mean, he's nearly 260 pounds. Also doesn't have as many pops on his tape. Like, he doesn't have as many thumps that I was kind of expecting. I mean, as watching, I'm like, okay, there's gonna be some big hits here. There's not that many big hits. There's not. There's good tackles. There's good plays. There's tackles for loss, but there's not as many he just ran right through that guy. So there's not as much of that as you like to see for his size. So maybe that's a mentality thing that he needs to, switch. Some kind of, switch needs to go off there. But as a run defender, his versatility also helps you a lot because since you can line him up the edge, he can set the edge. He has the size to play really anywhere as a linebacker. He fills through the lanes. He has nice speed. He can run sideline to sideline actually pretty well. Is it always going to get there? If he starts on the right side and the running back's going to the left, is he always going to be able to make it there? No. Sometimes he won't be able to get there in time, but it is pretty good for his size. All right. So he does have some good sideline to sideline speed. He's overall just he's a good run stopper. He does have a tendency though to not always, break down perfectly as a run stopper, and sometimes he kind of just goes by them and reaches out and kind of grabs, and that leads to missed tackles. Okay, he grabs too much for his size, and that's the thing. Like at your size, you want to see him just honestly just bulldoze through running backs and things, but he doesn't do that enough, and that's something that you would like to see. Maybe something at the next level. Someone gets in his ear and is like, "Hey, just run through people." Then you move on to Owusu. Owusu's a little bit different here. He doesn't play between the tackles, so that's not where he's going to be dominant as a run defender. Where he is good as a run defender is the range, is the sideline to sideline. It's plays outside that he can shut down because he can get to the edge faster than usually your running back can get there. So it's pretty impressive. And then when you have him in the inside, how he excels is kind of by just like shriveling himself up and kind of just like squirting his way through the offensive lineman to make a play in the backfield. Kind of just making himself small and tough for offensive linemen to pick up. He really wins with agility there. All right. Now, if he gets picked up, he can be erased from the play. All right. If he gets engaged, it can be difficult. He can sometimes disengage once something goes past him. Can I hold my own ground and still make a tackle? Not really. So he's all about athleticism, agility, kind of working his way past the offensive lineman. So if you have him on your team, you definitely got to make sure that he is clean at the second level. It's so much at the outside position. It's great to have him out there on outside running plays because he can just track things down and he will tackle. He will tackle. Does have a tendency to overrun plays though. If you watch him, he can definitely overrun things because he runs so fast. He kind of just runs himself out of position. But that's his role. So as a run defender, they're both good run defenders in their own rights because he brings so much as a package, but he could be more dominant. Look at Owusu-Koramoah. He's just limited. He's limited by his size, what he can do. But for his size, you do like a lot of things aside from really overrunning plays. He does a lot of things there. And like I said, that sideline to sideline range is special. And if you keep him clean, he will get in the mix. He's not shying away from contact because he's built like, some safeties and things like that, and he will tackle like a linebacker. Just want to stop in real quick to let you guys know that if you guys are ever interested in investing in our favorite sports teams like us as Detroit Lions fans, you guys should check out www.symbol.app. It's a way to basically invest in your favorite sports team and earn a payout when your team wins. So for us as Detroit Lions fans, now we can finally invest in something that we actually know. And with the draft coming up very soon, this is your opportunity to get involved. You guys can use promo code DOD for a $10 bonus deposit. Check it out. Zaven to me reaches too often. He doesn't explode through the runner as you'd like to see, and him trying to reach causes him to miss some tackles. Plus, he's not super agile in space, so sometimes I guess he could, get beat out in space because they could kind of make a move on him and he could miss. And Jeremiah's issue is he overruns things. And also sometimes they just kind of slip through his arms. He's not the biggest guy, so, bigger runners maybe could have an issue, but sometimes they kind of just slip through. I gave the advantage here to Zaven Collins. Again, Owusu is no liability. I mean, you just understand what he is. You understand I can't play this guy in between the tackles every single down and expect him to be a good run stopper because he's going to be taken out of the play. And it's a second level by one gapping, whatever that may be, then yeah, I mean, he could be more successful between the tackles. You would move on to here is as a pass rusher. As a pass rusher, again, man, they're both so talented in this, but they do it differently. And that makes sense because of their size. Zaven Collins is a pass rusher. He wins in a lot of ways, okay? So he does move pretty well for his size. So that allows him, depending on matchups, to win with speed and beat offensive linemen to the point of attack and, really able to get leverage and then get to the backfield. So sometimes the speed is what's beneficial. But then other times where he wins as a pass rusher, and I would say most of the time, is when tight ends, running backs are asked to pick him up and they really can't pick him up. I mean, running backs will usually just dive at his legs. And as long as he doesn't trip up by that, he's going to get to the quarterback. He's just too big. A running back's not taking on a 260-pound running back. Now, you like running backs try to, but if you have a smaller running back back there, it's gonna be tough. So as a pass rusher, he is so big, he's tough to pick up. I don't think he has the type of pass rush moves, and he's not a pure pass rusher like a guy like Micah Parsons looks like. He's not on that level, but his size and good speed allows him to be a good pass rusher, just not great like a Micah Parsons maybe. But then you look at Owusu-Koramoah, he simply wins the speed. It's no contest. He wins with speed. He is like a rocket, okay? That's what it is. Now, he can be taken out of those plays. If you pick him up, if an offensive lineman chucks him, sometimes bigger tight ends. He doesn't have pass rush moves, which I think would be the next step for him because he's probably not going to get much bigger. But as a pass rusher, the dude can fly. And if you're talking about, okay, which guy has the ability to get there before the quarterback even gets done with the play action, it's going to be Owusu. He can get there extremely fast. Sometimes can't get there, though. But he does play with aggression. I will give him that. There's no question he plays with aggression. And he's going to try to run through an offensive lineman. So you like that. He's not going to back away from, someone stepping up to take the block. He's going to try to run through him. I love that. Faster, Owusu does. Which linebacker may win more often? Probably Zaven, probably. But I think, Owusu, because of how quickly he can get there, can just absolutely be a disaster for offenses. And both of these guys probably would benefit from being allowed to blitz a lot during games because Zaven's just a matchup nightmare that if he can add a little bit more to his game in terms of pass rush moves, he could be more dominant. And then you look at a guy like Owusu-Koramoah, he can just get there so fast. It's like, what the heck just happened? Next thing we have then is in coverage. Now, in coverage, we'll start with Zaven Collins once again here. We're going to start with zone coverage first. First off, zone coverage for Zaven Collins is probably his bread and butter because he has a really nice feel for zone. He reads the quarterback's eyes, and he drops and gets pretty good depth most of the time. I say this, because of the athleticism side of things, Zaven Collins has less room for error on where he moves because he doesn't have that recovery ability like Owusu-Koramoah to that level. So he needs to be very precise. So he's got to be very careful to not get himself out of position, which means he can't take many chances, many risks when it's talking about dropping into coverage. Sometimes he lacks that depth, but because he's 6'5", he clogs passing lanes like not many linebackers are going to do, because he gets his arms up. You can't see. Not even quarterback. Receivers can't see the football coming to them. And sometimes they can't see the ball because it's like, oh gosh, he's in my way. So since he reads the quarterback size, he can just get in the way and put his arms up. And even if he's not deflecting the football, he's just in the way. And then you look at a guy like Owusu-Koramoah in zone coverage, he can drop so fast in coverage because, I mean, he can drop in the back pedal and keep up with the receiver sometimes, it seems like. I mean, this guy can drop super quick. So he can get out of position, maybe gets out in a bad spot because the quarterback fakes him, but then he can get back faster than maybe any other linebacker can. If Zaven's out of position, that's a problem. But the size can be very beneficial. He can be really tough if he's in the right spot. Koramoah, he can really recover so quickly. And then that moves you to man coverage. Man coverage, starting with Zaven first, definitely going to be much more limited here. Can he take out your occasional running back or backfield? Yes. Tight end? Yes, because he has the size. But if you're having a man-to-man, like a slot or something, he can man-to-man tight ends. But if you can't have a man-to-man a slot receiver like Jeremiah can. You just can't do it. Okay, he's just not big enough. You might be able to chuck him at the line and leave, but he's not going to keep up man-to-man coverage. His size can help him quicken routes because he's so big, and obviously you're not going to push him off the line. So that's helpful. And he can, take running backs leaking on the backfield early if he's able to get there. But you look at a guy like Jeremiah, this is where he thrives because he's kind of like a slot cornerback in a way. I mean, in man coverage, he's tough. He's so tough in man coverage because he can basically cover like a good slot corner will. Now, I will admit, coming out of breaks, still not the best. He does tend to give a lot of separation off of breaks, but if receiver's running a rounded route, if it's not crisp or if it's just going deep, something like that along those lines, he's going to stick right near like a cornerback will, and that's awesome. Slightly undersized, so tight ends could give him a problem if it's a high-pointed pass. And that's where Zaven's size really does come into play and gives him, a little bit of an advantage. But, otherwise, I mean, this is one of the only linebackers, technically linebackers, that can follow out a slot receiver and just stick with him like he's a corner. And you're like, oh, all right. I mean, you could basically play him at slot corner at the next level. Still don't think I don't think he'd be the best slot corner, but he could do it. And you'd be like, okay, that's fine. Definitely not the best out of breaks, but he can flip hips and run with you. And honestly, sometimes he make it look effortless. Like he'll run with you, he'll know where his safety is, and he'll kind of just be jogging. And it's like, dude, what the heck? How fast is this guy? So ridiculous there. And so zone coverage, it's tough. I would probably give, because of the awareness side, slightly better for Zaven. I'd probably give it to him, but I think the recovery ability is definitely Jeremiah. Man coverage is not even close. Jeremiah takes that one. And that brings me to awareness. I think both these players are extremely smart. But like I said, Jeremiah has more room for error because he can get himself back in a position. Zaven doesn't. Zaven, to me, is slightly more aware of what's going on. I don't see him get fooled as often, but he also doesn't take as many risks as Jeremiah can afford to. Jeremiah can take some risk, and sometimes that costs him getting sucked inside and, play actions, things like that. They can move him out of spots. I see a guy like Zaven, however, though, doesn't take as many risks, but he is on top of everything. Both these guys are really smart. I've seen both these guys recognize, read, and react to screens, go out there and make a play. I mean, seriously, they're both extremely intelligent players. I would slightly give the advantage here to Zaven, but Jeremiah gives you more room for error, and he could take more risks. I'm nitpicking here. You could call this one a tie. I'll call it a tie. And then I would say finally here you go to competition. who plays better competition? Well, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah played better competition. Now, that's not to say Tulsa didn't play anybody. They did. They played BYU. They played, Oklahoma State. But, yeah, I mean, I got to give it to the ACC player. So, man, both these guys are just tremendous. It just depends on what you're looking for here. I mean, you just got to know there's a difference. Which one will fit better for the Lions? We'll answer that question. It's tough. If you get a guy like Jeremiah, you would be saying, okay, he's probably going to play that weak side linebacker, kind of like a safety almost as well. It's kind of like a Jalen Reeves-Maben / slot corner / safety. It's a weird mix, but he's probably not playing between the tackles that often. You got to make sure he's clean. But his ability to kind of do so much outside of the tackles is what's exciting. As a run defender and also as a guy that can drop in coverage and have no issue. And as a blitzer, he's scary. He's scary as a blitzer. So if you're going to be attacking, Jeremiah can be exciting. I just wonder how consistent that role could be at the next level. It may take him a little bit to figure out where you're going to put him. Zaven probably won't take as long because I think he's playing a lot of different spots. Have that kind of speed that's, as scary to defenses. Look, speed kills. At the end of the day, you can't teach speed. And Zaven has speed, but not like Jeremiah does. And that's because of his size. But Zaven can definitely move. More versatility as a defensive player, definitely Jeremiah. Safety, corner, linebacker, edge. I mean, you could put him at so many different spots, and you could just move him around depending on the situation, inside, outside, depending on whatever situation it is. The issue for Jeremiah will be figuring out where he's best at on what situations, especially early downs, things like that. Where do I put him on the field? Just depending on where defense is. Probably the best on a weak side 4-3 defense, but you know, it just kind of depends. But definitely a team that's targeting those smaller linebackers would definitely benefit from a player like this. However, with his talent level, it may take time, but you got to believe once you figure it out, he's gonna be tremendous. I just think there's too much talent here for him to be a tweener. He just can be more versatile once you figure out how best to use him. Just I think Isaiah Simmons is going to take time, but he's going to figure it out, I think, at the next level because he's too talented. Saw that at his pro day when he worked out at different spots, so I thought was great for him. Zaven, however, as a pure linebacker, I think he's more versatile right now because you know kind of what roles he can play, and I think he can play a lot of different roles for 3-4, 4-3, inside, outside, but you can't really expand beyond that. You're not putting him at safety, even though he was a safety. You're not putting him at safety. He's 260 pounds. Don't do that. Not putting him at quarterback, even though he was that too. You are not probably going to put him at cornerback either. Even though he might be able to like line out there, he's not going to match up man to man. You know what I'm saying? I think he's better on the weak side. Both these guys probably are. It just depends on what you're looking for. You're looking for a guy that can help you between the tackles more, Zaven's your guy. If you're looking for a guy that helps you outside tackles, then Jeremiah's clear. Jeremiah's not a liability between the tackles. That's just not his biggest strength. I mean, he can do it. He did it with Notre Dame, but he's best on the outside. You know, that's where he thrives because he plays with such an aggression to his game and with such life and energy and no hesitation. Aggressive. He looks like he's like just jacked up on like, I don't know, 5-hour energy or something. I mean, he's bouncing around. I mean, he just looks different. He looks the part from teams. He looks faster than everybody else. So both of these guys are just amazing talents. I know which one you need. And yeah, comment down below which player you want to see me do next. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.